social change at that broader scale, changing laws, changing, and the missional outlook, and here I guess I should say, this is something that's made me say, so I'm not trying to like sell it, but from what I understand of the missional outlook, because it is so intensely relational, I would not go out, advocating for categories of people, for sort of things abstracted from my own neighborhood. I would more be inclined to be working in my neighborhood, in my cities, and in that kind of, so there's this real focus on community, perhaps greater on neighborhood and less on wider society, which goes kind of with an organizational model that tends to be smaller and more, again, this intense relationship thing. A bridge, man, that I've found between these ways of thinking is, there's a chapter in John Buren's chapter in Our Chosen Faith that talks about his time at All Souls, where, he was noticing that justice work tended to start from abstractions and then work its way down to relationships. And instead, he was sort of proposing this starting from relationships and, and then building. So I don't think it's either or, but I think the missional folks tend to be the ones who are, moving into neighborhoods and staying there for a long time and listening to the needs of the neighborhood and facilitating, that's what justice looks like at, in this framework, rather than broad-scale organizations.
So one of the ways to think about this, again, talking about missionaries, maybe another frame for it is many Christian congregations and even some of our congregations use the language of mission trips. The youth group will go to New Orleans to do some rebuilding post-Katrina. We'll go to Haiti to do some work with the service committee, etc. What if the mission trip was across the street? Yeah. What if the mission trip was to the homeless shelter that's a few blocks away, or to the neighborhood not that far from your church where there are real struggles going on between different ethnic groups? What if I'll give an example actually that I know of from another denomination, but I attended a conference last year at a large Methodist church that's doing a lot of missional work. And they had a satellite campus in inner city Dayton, Ohio, which had been an older church that they had sort of taken over, if you will, that they had assumed the leadership of. The church defined a 15-block area, 3 blocks wide, 5 blocks deep. That was their mission field. And they started regularly offering breakfast once a week. And before long, they were serving hundreds of people in the community breakfast. And every breakfast was a custom-made omelet. The reason being, the people who were doing the serving were then forced to have a conversation. Even if it was only about what do you want in your omelet, it was a genuine human connection. Rather than feeling good about helping out someone who's less fortunate than me, it was about finding an element of shared humanity between the members of this church and their immediate neighbors, living out their faith and the mission that their faith drove them to, right where they were.
And I'll jump in with a story about Oak Ridge, since I just trashed him a minute ago. So for the last 2 years, last Friday of every month, there's been this ministry called Stone Soup, making soup and bread meal for anybody in the community who wants to come and have a meal. And it's very interesting now over these 2 years to watch its evolution, because when it started, it was very clear, church members in the kitchen counter and those people out there, and it was all about about dignity, tables set, flowers on the table, all this stuff. But, it was clear about us and them. It has evolved over time through relationships, through conversations, to having several people now who used to be them in the kitchen, preparing and serving. And what I've been interested to see is, as these folks are clear, and this isn't my ministry, so it's, but as the Stone Soup people are clear about everyone, when we say everyone, church members, lonely, sometimes older, or, folks who just want to be together on a Friday afternoon, evening, they've been out there in the them section. And so it's gotten really confusing who's us and who's them. And it's these things have come up because of relationship. This one guy who's a regular, he was having his 70th birthday, and he kind of let people know that next month when he came back it was going to be, well, the Stone Soup people are cooks and bakers and all this stuff. So they made this huge cake and had all that kind of stuff. Sang happy birthday. There was one month where somebody showed up in there, this person's a hairstylist, and so she was cutting hair. So it's had this real kind of organic kind of thing, and when I've been studying like the theory or that I keep coming back to what I think it looks like is something like what is happening with this ministry. So that's also my way of saying I think it's probably happening in a lot of our churches, a lot of our lives. It's not like this thing that they're doing out again, or this, that folks out there are doing, the latest program we need to sign on to and try. But just, it may be something you're noticing already.
And I'll give just one other example, and I'd like to open this up. And it's an example I'm sure a few of you are familiar with, because the person within Unitarian Universalism who's probably best known for doing this kind of ministry is Ron Robinson. How many of you are familiar with the work that Ron's doing? Now, for those who don't know, Ron is,
Don.
I'm sorry?
Don.
Ron.
No,
It's Ron Robinson.
It's Ron Robinson.
Oh, different Robinson.
Different Robinson.
Different guy.
In Oklahoma,
Yeah.
Okay.
outside of Tulsa. Ron Robinson, some of you know him as the executive director of the UU Christian Fellowship, but he's also recently moved back to the neighborhood that he grew up in, Turley, Oklahoma, just outside of Tulsa, which is, in the language that some of the new monastics use, one of the abandoned places of empire. This is a place that has been decimated by economic blight. It was, from what I understand from Ron, a great neighborhood to grow up in. But it's been hit hard by poverty, been hit hard by so many of the shifts that happen in neighborhoods. High crime, high poverty, a rough place to live, one of the poorest zip codes in the state of Oklahoma. And I can tell you, my mother having lived in Oklahoma, there are some damn poor rural neighborhoods in Oklahoma. So to say that this is one of the poorest is saying something. Ron and his wife Bonnie, who is an internist, an MD, have gone back in to their home neighborhood, and it is their home neighborhood. They met each other when they were in kindergarten. They've started a congregation which has never come anywhere close to meeting the criteria for applying for membership. They have 12 people. Those 12 people are feeding 250 people a week. They have opened a community center that is providing health care, job training, computer access, a free library. They are doing advocacy work that came out particularly when the school was going to be closing, when the post office was going to be closing, advocating for those, for the community to keep those services available. They won a grant to get an orchard brought in for their community garden. So they are providing food and resources and even starting to buy up property and renovate it. 12 people who are living out their faith in an incredibly deep way. Most of us won't